She said it as a joke. Your wife is a lucky woman. And watched the most powerful man in Seoul go completely still. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It reached somewhere else. Somewhere dangerous. Because there was no wife. There never had been. And in that silence, something ancient and starving woke up inside Seo Junwoo, and it had just found its name. One sentence. That's all it took to detonate 3 years of iron control, a teacher's careless joke, a CEO's frozen smile, and a truth he'd buried so deep even he'd forgotten it was still breathing. He built an empire out of never wanting anything he couldn't destroy first. Then a kindergarten teacher smiled at him over a parent-teacher forum and called him a husband, and every rule he'd ever made caught fire. She thought she was being polite. He heard it as a promise. And by the time she realized her mistake, Seo Junwoo had already decided she wasn't leaving his life without a fight. Welcome to Afro-Korea TV. Please like, share, and subscribe. The parent-teacher conference room at Hanol Academy smelled like fresh coffee and nervous perfume. Linda straightened the folder in her hands, third try, and reminded herself that Seo Junwoo was, first and foremost, a father. Not the man whose face haunted business headlines. Not the man 3 assistants had warned her never to keep waiting. He walked in 11 minutes early, black suit, eyes like a closed door. Ms. Linda. His voice was quiet, controlled, unreadable. Mr. Seo, thank you for coming. She gestured to the seat across from her, hands steadier than her heartbeat. They talked about his daughter Haun, her drawings, her shy friendships, the way she lit up whenever her father's name came up in class. Linda watched something soften behind his eyes when she said it, a crack in granite. At the end, gathering the folder Haun had made, a crayon family portrait, 3 stick figures holding hands. Linda smiled without thinking. She drew this for you. Your wife is a lucky woman, getting a family like this. The room went silent. Junwoo's jaw tightened. His smile arrived a full 2 seconds late, and it didn't match his eyes at all. There's no wife, he said simply. There's only ever been Haun in me. Linda's stomach dropped. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean. Don't apologize. He stood, buttoning his jacket, gaze lingering on her face a beat too long. Some things people say, without meaning to, are truer than the ones they plan. He left before she could ask what that meant. She spent the rest of the evening trying not to think about the way he'd looked at her. She failed. The next day, a black car was waiting outside the school gates when Linda left. The driver stepped out and bowed. Mr. Seo asked that you not walk home in the rain, Ms. Linda. She hadn't noticed it was raining until he said it. She should have refused. She got in anyway. A few days later, flowers arrived at the school office. No card, no name, just an address label from Seo Enterprises. The other teachers gossiped for a week. Linda told herself it meant nothing. She kept the flowers anyway and pressed one petal into her planner where no one would find it. That evening, Junwoo stood at his penthouse window, tie loosened, a glass of untouched whiskey sweating in his hand. His assistant, Tae-min, cleared his throat from the doorway. Sir, the merger documents. Later. Junwoo didn't turn around. Find out everything about Ms. Linda's contract renewal. Quietly. Tae-min hesitated. Sir, is this about Haun's education or everything? Junwoo repeated, and something in his tone ended the conversation. By the end of the week, Linda had convinced herself the flowers, the car, the sudden appearance of Junwoo at every school event were coincidence. She stopped convincing herself the moment he showed up to the faculty charity dinner in a tux that made the entire room go quiet and walked directly to her table. Mr. Seo. She stood too fast, knocking her chair. I didn't know you'd be attending. I wasn't invited. His eyes didn't leave hers. I bought a table anyway. Across the room, a junior professor named Minho, tall, charming, recently divorced, sauntered over with 2 glasses of wine, one already extended toward Linda. Didn't realize you had company, he said smoothly, ignoring Junwoo entirely. Junwoo's expression didn't change. His voice, when it came, dropped 10 degrees. She does now. Minho laughed it off and retreated. Linda caught the tightness in Junwoo's hand around his own glass, the barely leashed tension in his shoulders, and understood, with a jolt of unwanted excitement, exactly what she'd just witnessed. Jealousy. On the face of Seoul's most untouchable man. Later that night, he walked her to her car. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. "You didn't have to do that," Linda finally said. "I know." He looked at her the way a man looks at something he's been told his whole life he isn't allowed to want. "I did it anyway." "Mr. Seo." "Junwoo," he corrected, quiet. "Just Junwoo, when it's like this." She should have argued. Instead, she said his name, testing its shape in her mouth, and watched something in him come undone. A few weeks passed in careful, aching proximity, school pickups that lasted longer than they should, phone calls about Haun that drifted into midnight conversations about nothing and everything, a slow unraveling of the distance both of them had sworn to keep. Linda told herself it was professional. Junwoo stopped pretending it was anything but devotion. The catalyst came on a night neither of them planned for. Haun spiked a fever at a school overnight event. Linda called Junwoo without thinking twice, sat beside his daughter in the nurse's office holding her small hand until he arrived, breathless, Taigon, fear naked on his face for the first time Linda had ever seen. "She's all right," Linda said softly. "The fever's breaking. I stayed so she wouldn't wake up alone." Junwoo looked at her. Really looked like the floor had opened beneath 30 years of careful control. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He crossed the room before he decided to. His hand found her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone, and the air between them turned electric, fragile, dangerous. "Linda." Her name in his mouth was a confession. "I have spent 3 years building walls so nothing could touch what matters to me. You walked through all of them without trying." "Junwoo, I." He kissed her before either of them could talk themselves out of it, slow, aching, full of everything neither had said aloud. The world outside the small nurse's office ceased to exist. There was only warmth and breathlessness, and the terrifying relief of finally stopping the fight. When they pulled apart, Linda's hands were shaking. "I shouldn't have done that," she whispered, panic rising fast and ugly. "You're Haun's father. I'm her teacher. This is real," Junwoo said low. But fear was louder than longing. Linda pulled back, gathered her coat, and left before he could stop her, before she had to watch him decide, in the cold light of morning, that this had been a mistake. He didn't let her get far. By the following morning, he was standing outside her apartment building, having waited since 5 a.m., coat soaked through from rain he refused to notice. "You ran," he said, when she opened the door, stunned. "I don't run from things I want. I need you to know that before you decide I will." "Junwoo, people like you don't end up with people like me. There will be board members, tabloids, custody lawyers, everyone deciding I'm not enough." "Then let them decide," he said fiercely. "I've spent my whole life being told what I'm allowed to want. I'm done listening." He didn't touch her. He simply waited, rain-soaked and resolute, until she stepped aside and let him in. The scandal broke within days. A photo of them outside her apartment, splashed across every gossip outlet in Seoul. SEO Enterprises CEO's secret affair with daughter's teacher. The board convened an emergency meeting. Junwoo's estranged uncle, Chairman Seo Dae-hyun, a man who'd wanted control of the company for a decade, seized the opportunity like a starving man at a feast. "A scandal like this could cost the company billions," Dae-hyun said smoothly, in front of the assembled board. "Perhaps it's time we discussed whether Junwoo is fit to lead." "This is a family matter," Junwoo said, ice in every syllable. "Not a boardroom matter." "It's both now." Dae-hyun smiled the smile of a man already counting his winnings. "Unless, of course, you end it." "No," Junwoo said, without a second of hesitation. Dae-hyun didn't stop there. Within a week, Linda was suspended from Hanul Academy pending investigation into professional conduct, a fabricated complaint, engineered and paid for. Then came the anonymous threats. Then, on a rain-soaked evening walking home from a friend's apartment, a black van pulled alongside her, and 2 men forced her inside before she could scream twice. Junwoo received the call at midnight. Taemin's voice was shaking.
Sir.
Ms. Linda didn't come home. Her phone was found on the street outside her building. Something in Junwoo went cold and final, the last civilized part of him switching off like a light. Get me Dae-hyun's location.
Now.
He tore through the city that night like a man with nothing left to lose, calling in favors, threatening allies, burning every careful relationship he'd built over a decade of restraint. He found the warehouse by dawn, a CO Enterprises shipping property, quietly owned through a shell company Dae-hyun thought no one would trace. Linda was tied to a chair in a cold room, terrified but unbroken, when the door exploded open and Junwoo walked through it like judgment itself. Junwoo, her voice cracked. I'm here. He was at her side in 3 strides, cutting the ropes with hands that shook for the first time in years. I'm here. I've got you. No one is ever taking you from me again. Dae-hyun's men moved to stop him. Junwoo didn't flinch. Call the police, he told Taemin, voice ablade. And call every reporter who ran that story. Tell them the real one is about to break. The following morning, Junwoo stood before the entire board, Dae-hyun included, under police escort, and did something no one expected. He didn't defend himself. I love her, he said simply, into a room gone utterly silent. I love Linda more than I have ever loved anything that wasn't my daughter. If loving her costs me this company, then it was never worth having in the first place. But you should all know, the woman my uncle tried to have kidnapped to protect his own greed is the same woman who sat beside my sick daughter through the night without being asked. That is the kind of person I intend to marry. He turned to the boardroom doors, where Linda stood, disheveled, exhausted, and radiant with disbelief. Mary, she whispered. He crossed the room and knelt, right there, in front of the board that had tried to destroy them both. Your wife is a lucky woman, you said, the day we met. I've spent every day since hoping it would be you. Let me stop hoping, Linda. Marry me. The boardroom held its breath. Haun, brought in by Taemin for exactly this moment, ran forward and threw her arms around Linda's waist. Please say yes. Then you'll really, really be my mom. Linda laughed through tears, pulling Junwoo up by the collar of his suit.
Yes.
Yes, 1,000 times yes. By the following spring, the scandal had become a footnote, Dae-hyun's schemes exposed, and his shares stripped by a unanimous board vote. CO Enterprises thrived under a CEO the public now saw not as untouchable, but as a man who had fought harder for love than for power, and won both. The wedding was small, warm, and full of the kind of joy neither of them had believed they were allowed. Haun, in a flower girl dress she'd picked herself, walked the aisle scattering petals with fierce concentration. That evening, married and quiet inside their new life, Junwoo pressed his forehead to Linda's, hand resting over the news she'd whispered to him only that morning. A second heartbeat, faint and impossible and entirely theirs. A family, he murmured, voice rough with wonder. A real one. Your wife, Linda whispered back, smiling against his lips, is a very lucky woman. He kissed her like a man who had finally stopped waiting to be happy.